All right, so here's the problem. Okay, some of you, well, one student in the class said they had questions on the week one inverses. So they actually didn't tell me that. They just said they had questions. So I can only assume that I can go to the latest assignment that they did not get correctly, and I will look at the problems that they got wrong. So that's what I'm going to go through now, and hopefully help the student out. Really, just as a reminder, I do have every day. I do have at 10:20. I am online. I'm on Schoology conferences for questions, and I'm also available at this period of time from 3 to 4 to answer questions. So you can set up a time to meet with me then, but since no one has done that yet, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through these problems from week one. So first off, you have this line segment. It's this one down here. It goes between -7, -5. So that is -7 to the left and down 5. That's this point right there. Okay, and I'm just going to label it so you can visualize that's the point. And the other point is -1, -2. So you really have to figure out, well, there's two lines on here. Which one's the one I'm going to use? And it's this one. Now here we have this idea when you take the inverses, when you take an inverse means to switch. Okay? Inverse means to switch. So if you had -7, -5, now on your H inverse, it's going to be -5, -7. So let's go through. All we did is we switched our X and Y. See that? Bloop, bloop, they switched. So all we're going to do is identify that point. So instead of going negative, we go -5 and then down -7. We put a point. And then we do the same thing here with our next point. We just switch it. Bloop, bloop, it switched. So -1. So now it's -2, -1. And our line would go between those 2 points. Okay? That's the idea. When you take the inverse, all you're doing is you're switching the X and the Y. So let's take a look at another example. So here's the other example. All right, here's our 2 points. We have 1, -5, which is right here. 1, -5. Okay, and we could think about, well, what's the switch of 1, -5? So if we have 1, -5, what's the inverse of that point? It's going to be those points switched. Now notice the negative goes with it. So -5 and then +1, which is going to be all the way over here. And then what's our next point? Over 9, up 1. So 9, 1. So 9, 1. And the inverse of that is going to be 1, 9. So let's see, that's 1, 9. So our new line is going to go between those 2 points right there. So you really have to, so on your notepad, on your paper, that's the things I would be writing down. What I wrote down here, you could write, you can even label them. You could say, this is my original, and this is called H, and this is my inverse of H. Okay, you could write it down and keep it organized. Okay, that's how you guys are going to do well, is if you keep it organized. All right, so the next type of question we had here, the graph of the invertible function is shown on the grid below. What is the value of H inverse of 0? Okay, so that says H -1, 0, 0, and let's talk about what that means. So when we see this little -1, 0, that means we want to think this is read H inverse of 0, Okay, so that means usually we're thinking where is the Y value equal to, so usually when you're doing like H of 0, so if this was just H of 0, you would say, well, I'm going to go to 0, 0. Okay, I'm going to go to 0, okay, go to 0, and let's go to X equals 0, and find the Y value. Okay, I'll say Y value. Okay, that's usually what it means to do. So if we're not doing inverses, go to the X so we'd say, well, this is where X is equal to 0. Okay, and then where X is equal to 0, that goes with -5. All right, so that would be equal to -5. Now that's not the answer because we're not doing that. We're doing the inverse. Okay, so when we're doing H inverse of 0, so let's just write this down. H inverse of 0. We're going to do the opposite of what we just did. So we're going to go to where Y is equal to 0 and find the X value. Well, you're probably thinking, man, that's the same thing, right? But it's kind of not. Just look at how this is written right here. Okay, so if H of 0, we go to the X, where X is equal to 0, and find the Y value. So we went to X equal to 0. We found where does that match up where does the blue line meet that on the Y axis? This is our Y axis. Now we're going to go to where Y is equal to 0. And of course, at the origin, both things are 0. we're going to go where the x value. So the x value is going to be side to side. So where do we cross up side to side when at h is 0? It's right here. At this point right here. This is it. This is the point at 5. Okay, because we went to where we had 0, because we have a 0 here. Y is equal to 0, and we found the x value. So 5. So the answer would be 5. Okay, equals 5. All right, let's take a look at our next one. Oh, good. So f inverse of 6. So let's just follow the same logic we just did. So if we're doing f of 6, okay, that means go to where x equals 6 and find y equals. What does y equal to? So for the original, if we're reading this like a regular old graph, like we learned how to read when we were in, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, okay, we would go to x equals 6, because this is x is 6, and we'd say, oh, it's up here, right? And we'd say, oh, it's about, what, 7.2, okay, about that. But we're doing the inverse. So now we're going to do the opposite of what we've learned, okay? We're just going to switch the script. So f inverse of 6, okay, we go to y equals 6, and we find what x is equal to. All right, that's what we're going to do. So f inverse, let's make sure that looks like an inverse. Go to y equals 6. So where is y 6? So y is 6 right up and down here. So where do we see 6 on the y-axis? Boom, right here. And we want to find where does that line up side to side, the x value that goes with it, right here. You guys see that? And what does that go with? Down here, 4. So that would be 4. Okay? So let's just take a look, double page it up. So look, when we're doing the inverse, we go to the y value on the graph, where it says y 0, and we read the graph kind of sideways. You can also think I'm just going to like turn my head, and I'm going to look at it sideways from how I usually read a graph, because that's actually what you're doing. All right, let's take a look at the last one, that this table one that we had questions with. So here it is. So the table below shows some inputs and outputs of a function f. All right, and this is what we have, and we have to evaluate each of these. So find the following. Man, what is that 6.02 doing there? Well, the domain of all real numbers, f inverse of f inverse of 6.2. So let's just write down some things that are important that maybe you could have taken notes on. So the inverse of the inverse, okay, of x is just equal to x. All right, this is kind of how it looks when you're writing it down, but it means the inverse of the inverse, the value. So when you do f and f inverse together, they cancel out. That's kind of the most basic way of saying it, all right? Because you're taking the inverse, you're doing the opposite of the opposite, so you end up kind of like back where you started, right? Like if you take something and you flip it side to side and then you flip it back, you end up where you started. Like if you take a shirt and you're like, I'm going to take my shirt and I'm going to wear it inside out, and then you flip it around to back right side in, you're going to be wearing the shirt the same way, right? It's the same idea. So that's going to help us with this first one, because that's what we're doing here, because it goes, if it looks like this, or if it looks the other way, if the f inverse part, if it's on the outside. So if it looks like the f is here, ooh, that looks so ugly. Let's make it look pretty. Nope, that's not it. F, no. F, X, let's make this. This looks going to look so nice. You're going to be like, wow, it looks so smooth, Miss Novik. All right. Like this, the same goes if the f inverse is on the outside. And that's going to help you with this, because what happens is, just kind of thinking ahead, these kind of cancel and you're just left with what's inside. That cancels, you're left with what's inside. So maybe this is going to cancel, be left with what's inside, right? That cancels, you're just left with this 6.022. And my inclination that I had to do something special was that I didn't see this number anywhere here in the table. So what we're going to do next, all right, to solve the next one, is I'm actually going to make the chart for both of these. All right, so that's our original, right? That's our x, that's what's given to us. And we want to do the inverse graph. So when we do the inverse, all that happens, and this is what you'd be writing down in your book, all that happens is if this is x, right, all that happens is what was once on the bottom is now on the top. That's all that happens, Okay, what was once on the bottom is now on the top. So we're just switching it around. Oh, it's a 10. Okay, see how that was on the bottom, and now we're putting it on the top of our table. You just switch the x's and y's, and you do the same thing down here at the bottom. So f inverse, okay, of x, and we'll write it the right way. F inverse of x. All right, looks like this, and you just switch them around. So what was once on the top is now on the bottom, -6. What was once on the top is now on the bottom. What was once on the top is now on the bottom. I'm trying to like keep it together. And then 3. You see that? So when we want to find f inverse of 10, that says, well, what when x is equal to 10, right? When x is equal to 10, our -10, what's our y value right here? So that's -6. You see that? Okay. When x is equal to -6, oh, why am I not seeing this up here? Oh, this is regular f. Look at that. Regular f. So regular f of -6 would be this. So let's color code this. Let's do it up, man. Okay. So this is this one. This is our inverse, right? So for this, we're going to be using what's down here. And this is our regular on the regular. So we're going to be using this one right here. You see that? So f inverse of -10, we're going to be looking at our switch around where we switched it. And we're going to see the value that lines up, so -6. And then this is just regular old f. At regular old f, -6 goes with -10. Right? And we're adding those new numbers. So -6 and -10 is going to give us -16. All right? So this is just a reminder. I think that's the last one we can go through. So when you have f and f inverse together, they cancel out. And to make a second table for f inverse, you just switch the x and y's. That's it. So let's put that in. Okay, to make a table, to make a table for f inverse, just switch. It's easy. Switch the x and y's. Okay, so that's about a 12-minute video. I know that was a long time. Just keep in mind that we do have, every day at 10:20, I am on the Google conference and I'm ready for your questions. Also, if you're going to shoot me an email, all right, a message, put in there like what you're struggling with. Even if you don't really know how to explain it, just put the numbers down. Maybe the title of the Khan Academy assignment you're working on. Maybe like at minute 30 seconds, I have no idea what this man is saying. And that's going to help me help you in the best way possible. Okay, if you're having a wonderful day and staying safe, all right, let me know if you have any questions.